So this is actually the second time I've sat down to make this video. Unfortunately, the first time around, I connected my mic and there was no voice, which means I'm gonna have to do this video all over again. But I'm happy and glad to, because I really want to share some of my tips and tricks on how I've disciplined myself over the past 2 years. It has not been fun to discipline myself, but I've tried to make it as fun as possible so I could get the best results, because I do have a lot of projects ongoing. If you feel unproductive in the morning, but as soon as the sun goes down, you feel more alert, awake, and more productive, then this video is for you guys. Let's get on with it. So first, I think it's very important to define what exactly is discipline, and courtesy of my favorite dictionary by Cambridge, this is the definition. First part is basically all about discipline versus motivation. Is a whole online debate, and specifically in the YouTube self-productivity and improvement circle, there is a debate of motivation versus discipline and how to separate those two. I agree with that because they're two separate things. Discipline is more behaviors based. If you learn to separate that, it'll probably be a more productive scenario. Motivation ends, discipline kind of takes over, and that's what you need. So as someone currently trying to start a freelance business, which will eventually go into hopefully a marketing agency in the future, YouTube channel, trying to find a 9-to-5 to support myself, and doing the various other different I have, which also includes building a website at some point this year. So there's a lot on my plate, and I just thought, how am I ever going to get through everything? I will give you some of the tools that I use, but the main one is Notion. Like most people on YouTube, I think. Honestly, the best productivity and organizational tool. There's nothing that tops that. Getting back to the point, motivation versus discipline. I think when it comes to motivation, there's things like inspirational boards, which you can add onto your walls. You can download an app and create a vision board in terms of what you want to do, but that will not last long. So you could look at it every single day, but you might not want to work on the goals every single day, which is basically my issue. So that was my problem. I had everything set up. I had all the requirements that I needed in order to be productive and in order to get my work done. But I just wasn't getting it done in the morning. It would always be during the evening when everybody's stopped working, and I was like, actually now I feel productive. And I didn't really know why I was doing that. And it was partly because I guess maybe I didn't really understand how to decode my bigger goals into daily tasks, which I will talk about later on in the video. However, there were other things as well. So there was things like not taking the right vitamins, not setting up my space specifically, not planning my days. And I think out of all the things with motivation versus discipline, habit that I changed within myself, which actually helped me make that shift from evening to the morning, was planning. So beginning of the year, I actually made an entirely new yearly planner on Notion. And what I did was I actually went to a bunch of workshops. So I've spoken about it before in some of my other videos. I attended, I hope I'm saying that right, Kaylin Grace Apple's end of year planning workshop. And then I also attended Ali Abdal's most recent, I think it was the beginning of January. And it wasn't actually a webinar, it was basically a summit. It was a productivity summit, which lasted over the span of 2 days. He had a couple of people come and speak to us about productivity. So there was a neuroscientist, TJ Powers, who was really good. Easy Seeley was there, which was really nice. She was talking about planning that goes behind creating a vision board. And then we had Sahel Bloom, who was promoting his new book, 5 Types of Wealth. But also we saw their general discussion about how to be more productive. And I think there was also Cal Newport that came on, and I love Cal Newport and his books. So yeah, so I attended those webinars, and based off of that, I created a yearly Notion planner. And the way that I've divided it is that I've done monthly, quarterly, then I have the different goals. So there's projects, and then there's inspiration, there's finance, there's a bunch of different things that I've done. And I'm going to test it out this year to see how well I work and how better my discipline is based off of the yearly planner. So this isn't the first time that I have had a yearly planner, but this is the first time I've created a yearly planner on Notion, and I'm gonna test it out, and then towards the end of the year, if it does actually work, starting next year when my website is done, I will then sell it as a template, and hopefully you guys will enjoy using it. But for now, I'm using it for myself and using myself as a guinea pig to see how it works. But so far, honestly, it has actually moved my discipline to like 200%, which wasn't there before. And I'm actually surprised how much work I get done and how much work I get done in the morning. So I know that this needs to be done in the morning. I'm well aware of what needs to be done throughout the day, throughout the month, throughout 3 months, and throughout the year. Another thing that I wanted to mention is that I actually went to a private school when I was younger. I went to a private school since I was a child, so probably right from kindergarten up until I graduated with my A-levels, and being in such a strict and disciplined environment did actually help me. We had specific rules, we had very strict rules that we had to follow, and it was the same back home. The one similar task that I did in my private school as well as now is having a yearly planner. So when I was at school, we actually had a yearly planner which we had to fill out weekly, monthly. It was basically the most important thing you could ever own, and if you lost it, you were in a lot of trouble because everything was on that planner, which basically helped me build really good routines of writing everything down and also planning everything from weekly, monthly, quarterly, and yearly. That's basically how I've actually created my Notion planner as well. Rounding back up to motivation versus discipline, creating a planner was actually a game changer in shifting my productivity from evening and night to basically in the morning, and shifting my mindset to actually getting the work done in the morning and then relaxing in the evening and doing things that I actually enjoy, like reading a book or watching a show on Netflix, which everybody loves to do. A huge game changer, and I would recommend that if you're starting your journey with discipline, I would say that creating a yearly planner is probably one of the biggest aspects that helps you shift that mindset. So another major difference is designing your workspace. There is a lot of data, there is a lot of research on this, and unfortunately I wasn't able to find one quick enough for this video. There's a lot of research which actually tells you that designing your workspace can increase your productivity by at least 10%. One of the research that I read was actually in the Marie Kondo book, Joy at Work, her second book. I'd actually just lost all my clients and I needed something to read which would help me get me back on track with my work and career life when the pandemic was over, because I was working freelance and the whole dynamics of the workspace actually changed, and I didn't know how I would actually go back into that quite easily. So I bought this book. Within that book, she talks about designing your workspace. Now, in the past when I was in school, I did actually have a space where I worked, but I didn't really think too in depth about how to actually work in terms of how to set up a space for productivity. I hadn't given it that much thought because I think I was just very busy in my day-to-day activities and passing modules and going to school and doing all of my extracurricular activities that I never really thought about designing your space. But now I think, because there's so much more that I have to think about and there's so many other things that I need to do, that I think setting up my space for productivity is probably a good idea for me to increase my productivity. So in this book, Marie Kondo talks about how when she was working in an office, she basically would spend around 5 to 10 minutes every morning cleaning her desk space, organizing everything, and she'd already organized everything in like boxes, kept the documents that she needed to retrieve on a daily basis, and then she would spend every morning before she started work cleaning her desk, and then she would kind of start her work. And so she basically designed her space for productivity, and what she actually realized as a byproduct of what she was doing, that she was able to do more sales calls and she was able to increase her sales. So it didn't increase immediately, but what it did was it gave her consistency. Now, consistency is the key when it comes to discipline. So that is actually linked. That was one of the game changers for me as well, because on the days where I didn't feel like working, I still had the discipline and the consistency to actually go for it. And consistency is the key when it comes to discipline. If you can train your mind and train your body to be consistent even when you're not in the mood or you don't have the motivation, that's where you start to really build that discipline and it starts to increase. And I noticed that when I started to do that at home. So I will do a quick tour. So this is how I've set up my desk. All my self-help books and productivity books that I need to access on a regular basis are on the shelf. I have my cables and wires, folders that I need to access, and I have pens, papers, everything that I need on my desk. And then I have my diaries where I write everything, and I've got my 5-minute diary as well. And then I keep a tray here for food, drinks when I'm working. And I've got my hard drive, I've got my Pomodoro clock, and Rubik's Cube if I want to take a break, which I still haven't figured out how to do. I'm still learning to do the Rubik's Cube. So that's my desk space, which I've set up, and it basically works for me. And I realized that waking up every single day and getting ready for the day, and then I would sit down on my desk, even if I didn't feel like doing any of the work, I still had that consistency because I've been working on, say, like a business plan the day before. I wanted to finish that. I knew I had to finish a certain section. So I would just sit down and automatically I would just have the urge to just finish off everything that needed to be done, and that really built my consistency. It was a slower pace, but it really helped me go on an upward trajectory. Designing your space is a really important aspect, and it's a really important step to be able to build consistency, which will lead to an upward trajectory with discipline. It's something that you need to achieve in order to achieve your future goals. Alright guys, so that's it for this video on discipline. I will be making a part 2 because there's a lot of other things that I was not able to get through in this video, and there's a lot of things that I'm changing currently, and I'm going to test them out and see how they work so I can be better at discipline. I will come back in the future with a part 2, the other techniques that I've tried that have helped me become a morning person and discipline myself. If you guys liked this video, please hit the subscribe button and like the video, and you can also follow my journey on Instagram. You can follow me if you're interested, and I will see you next week.